I'm not the sort who changes things very easily. Once I get used to something, I usually stick with it for years. My phone lasts me forever. I've been in the same job for over a decade, and this, my Duster, is more than 5 years old now. The funny thing is, when I bought this car, it was already at the end of its life cycle. By then, newer rivals had more features, bigger screens, and all of that. And yet, to me, this felt like the more honest car. What I liked about a Duster is that it never felt like a hatchback on stilts, pretending to be an SUV. It felt properly planted. The boot is huge, and that 1.3 turbo petrol has proper punch on the highway. But more than anything else, it was the ride quality. The early Dusters, especially the one with the 16-inch wheels, had this brilliantly absorbent ride quality. Mine runs on 17-inch alloys, and you could already feel the sidewalls getting thinner. So, I'm genuinely curious to know how the new one on 18-inch wheels will behave. Of course, there are things that feel dated now, but after a point, you stop noticing most of that because the fundamentals are still so good. So no, I'm not really in the mood to replace this car right now. Maybe 3 or 4 years from now. And like most Duster owners, I've been curious about this one for a while. How much has changed, and more importantly, how much hasn't. Now you'll get all the details about the engine, the features, the tech, the whole thing about this new Duster in our first drive review. So this isn't that. This is coming from someone who's lived with a Duster for years and wants to know whether a new one still feels like a Duster. First impressions? Renault has clearly tried to keep the core personality intact. This still feels like a Duster. The sitting position still gives you that slightly commanding view up front. Visibility is great and it feels solid. And then there's the refinement. My old Duster lets a lot of the outside world into the cabin. This one feels far better insulated. And then there's the engine. This one makes slightly more power and about 30 Newton meters more torque. But it all feels very effortless. In lower gears, particularly in the second gear, I would have had to downshift to first in crawling speeds, but this one pulls very cleanly from lower revs. There's also the clutch, which feels a lot lighter on this one than my old Duster. Impressive, pretty impressive. And thankfully, Renault hasn't ruined the ride quality of this one by trying to make it more sporty. Even with the 18-inch wheels, this one has that familiar Duster trait of absorbing bad roads without feeling unsettled. Lovely. The old Duster felt a generation behind on the inside. This one definitely fixes a lot of that. The screen placement alone makes a huge difference. Everything is much closer to your natural eye line. You don't have to look down and everything is well placed. This tilt towards the driver makes it feel so convenient. Definitely a huge step up in convenience and features. There are more storage areas now, wireless charging, better usability overall, all things the older car genuinely lacked. But I still think Renault could have done a better job with space optimization. The front door pockets still aren't large enough. The rear passengers could have done with some more leg space, and that stands out even more because Renault itself has shown what it can do in this area. The Triber, for example, is basically a masterclass in space packaging for its size. So you do feel like there was room to think through some of those details better. I am also not completely sold on everything else inside. The digital layouts feel a little too busy for my liking. On the old Duster, the interiors feel really bare bones and basic. And this, it's a sea change. It's completely modern, completely upmarket. But the plastic quality on the old Duster, although bold and rugged, feels like it's built to last. Although this cabin is quite modern, loaded with features, the quality of the plastic could have been slightly better. And then while driving this Duster, although this is quite a well-balanced car, the steering is spot on, the handling is quite nice, I still feel the older Duster feels slightly more planted and more dynamically stable than this one, the new Duster. Now let's see how things are at the rear. Now first things first, the seats are quite comfortable, well contoured, scooped out. The quality of the leatherette is quite nice. You also have the center armrest in the older Duster as well with 2 cup holes, but this one has a mobile holder as well. Now overall, it's quite a nice place to be in. Knee room is adequate for my height, which is 5 foot 9 inch, but I feel overall leg room could have been improved. I can't find so much of a difference in the rear seat passenger space in the new Duster compared to the old one. Instead of giving a bigger boot, Renault could have perhaps thought about giving more rear seat comfort to the passengers sitting at the rear. Slightly more legroom would have definitely been more welcome. And then there is plastic claddings towards the rear section. These are patterns, this plastic bit and even the bumper. And these have a tendency to attract a lot of dirt. So if you have an OCD to keep your car clean, spick and span, then you will need to work hard to clean these bits. Let's take a look at the boot now. What's good is that now it gets a powered tailgate, but no sensor of course, and it's a humongous boot, over 500 liters of boot space. I feel the older Duster's boot space was adequate and this one takes it to the next level. But what you don't get is a spare tire. There's space for a spare tire, but it won't come standard with the car. What you get instead is a puncture repair kit. For a car which will be used by many for road trips, I feel a spare tire should have been given a standard, because when you need it, you need it. If your tire goes for a toss, even a puncture repair kit will not help you when you're going on an adventure, when you're going on an adventurous road trip, so to speak. And some of the design trends don't really work for me either. The hidden rear door handles, for example, or some of the styling at the rear and that massive Duster lettering on the grille. But those are details. The important thing is that Renault hasn't tried to turn the Duster into something which it was never meant to be. And ultimately, this is what the Duster is all about. Road trips. The engine is strong, the gearing is better sorted now, and this thing just settles into a cruise very naturally. You can sit at triple-digit speeds all day long, and when you need to overtake, there's enough punch there from the engine without the car feeling stressed. But more importantly, it still has that easy and unshakable quality that older Dusters were known for. And that's one of the reasons why the Duster still has a strong fan following. So is the new Duster better than my old one? Yeah, pretty clearly. The cabin is more modern, the refinement is better, the engine is stronger, and thankfully, it still rides like a Duster should. But the more important thing is this. Renault seems to have clearly understood what people liked about the original Duster. It was never about gimmicks. It was about getting the fundamentals right. And that, thankfully, is still here with this, the new Duster.